it's 2024. So it is very common that, women are at the helm of businesses. It's very common that women who are running accounts or being account managers are women. So just like I proved myself to people as I worked my way up, when I'm working with my client success coordinators or they're struggling to help a client understand things, I give them the same types of advice that was given to me throughout my life. There are no limitations. That's their limitation. That's not yours. That's their view of you. That's not yours. So again, when it comes to business, people want to know they're getting a return. They want to understand they're getting things on time. They want to understand what's happening with the dollars that they're giving you. And as long as we're able to do that, it doesn't matter if you're male or you're female.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome to Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through CFO and consulting services. Now, y'all know the drill. It's season 2. I told y'all we was going to get the big dogs. You know what I'm saying? And so I just came back from this awesome conference, and somebody was like, you need to talk to her. She's a mover and shaker. And one day we were both like, I think it was dinner time eating. And I was like, somebody told me I should talk to you. And she was like, really? So I asked her to come on. So ladies and gentlemen, the great CJ is here. So tell us, first off, welcome. Tell us your name of the company, and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am CJ Bachman. I am the CEO of One SEO Digital Agency. We are a full service digital marketing agency that serves the United States and Canada. The markets that we really work well with are home services, professional services, and health and wellness. And really our job is to make those human connections. We're taking your marketing dollars and putting you in front of your ideal customer. And that's what we do. We work with our clients to understand what's changing in their market, what else they need. We develop new services along with our clients, and ultimately just want to make those connections that can lead to business and helping our clients grow.
All right. See, so one thing already off the rip, she said we're helping them develop new services. Break that down for us, because most marketing agencies aren't trying to create a new service. They're just trying to either, here's SEO, here's ads, here's PPC.
Yep.
So tell us, how are you helping them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the world of marketing is changing, and I'm sure there's going to be some people sitting here who are going to roll their eyes to this, but it doesn't make sense anymore to have all of your eggs in one basket. So you think about marketing, and you said it, most people think about digital marketing, they think about SEO, PPC, and social media, and that's it. There is an entire other world out there, and business owners aren't always relying on the search engines anymore. So you have coaching groups and networking groups. You've got profiles that business owners are using. You've got local entities that are driving business. So as a company, we want to make sure that we're helping our clients be able to gain business across whatever platforms and whatever channels are working best for them. So think about things like a lawyer and how much they rely on platforms like FindLaw. So having a marketing agency that understands that platform, understands how to optimize that platform for maximum results for you is far more beneficial than just saying, hey, we're going to run some ads and see what happens.
Right. And see, I love that, because what we're starting to see is that the people who are continuing to excel, some people say we're in a recession. We're not going to argue that. But the people who are doing well are people who are consistently elevating and adapting and creating more value for their clients versus I just keep doing this and the status quo. So I love that you're doing that. Tell us a little bit about your journey. So how did you even get started? Because I think we've had guests on here before where they're like, it's not as many women business owners as you think, or there's women tend to make less. Women don't typically hit the $1 million agency mark, and if they do, they're like 5% or less. So how to overcome all those different things? Like, just walk us through what it was like for you to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. And so every time someone asks me that question, I feel like I had an advantage. And the reason why I feel like I had an advantage is because I grew up as the oldest child. I was supposed to be a boy. So when I was born, my dad just kind of raised me how he would have raised a boy, right? So I did everything my dad did. I didn't realize that there were limitations. So my dad owned his own company, so I was involved with that very early. It was physical labor. So, as a young child, I was out in the field and I was pulling, post off the back of a trailer and I was running wire down a line. And so I just didn't have that same limitation in my mind of, oh, I'm a girl, I'm not supposed to be able to do these. So when I got into the workforce, I never went into it with thinking that I was less than. I just wasn't raised that way. So it wasn't until I grew up in Florida, so I worked for a corporate company. They did all kinds of construction, basically new construction. So countertops, flooring, appliances, everything really but roofing and concrete. So I was having to sell to builders. I was having to talk to construction people. And that was really the first time that I realized, oh, well, they're not listening to me. They're listening to the guy that works for me, that came along with me, that's holding my tape measure, but they're not listening to me. So I very quickly realized that, that was a thing. And ultimately, the way that I was raised, I just knew that I needed to prove my value. And the way that I needed to prove my value was outworking the people around me, outsmarting the people around me, bringing more to the table. If I went into a meeting, having as much insight and information as possible, I never kept my mouth shut. I just kept speaking. I kept speaking up even when people didn't want me to or didn't expect me to speak up. So I kind of broke that mold for myself. When I moved up to the PA area, I worked for a heating and air conditioning company. I did sales and marketing. Again, a female in a role that was predominantly men. I was climbing up on roofs. I was measuring units. I was, figuring out CPUs. And I really just engrossed myself to understanding the business that I was in. So when One SEO was founded in 2009, I got the opportunity to come aboard very slowly in the beginning, more consulting and just kind of helping out, getting everything off the ground. And it started to take up more and more time. And I just said, you know what, you win, you win. And I'll join. It's fine. It's taking up too much time. And I came on as a project manager. And I really started working with clients. And that same mindset that I had, I realized was needed because, again, as a project manager, I had these HVAC business owners or a roofing contractor, and they're talking to a female. So again, I had to outwork the people around me. I had to outsmart them. I had to bring more to the table. I had to prove it in order for me to kind of get that seat at the table. So it was a combination of just my mindset and knowing that I wasn't less than and just being willing to ride that. There was also a period of time in management where you get stuck as a female with the B title, right? You're a manager, you run a department, you've got a bunch of people that answer to you, and they very quickly slap you with the B word. And a male counterpart would just be passionate or aggressive, but as a female boss, it was the B word. So I ultimately wore that as a badge of honor because I'm like, I'm doing the same thing as my male counterpart. I'm holding you accountable. I'm making sure the work is getting done, and all of that. So I think my mindset was what made the biggest difference, but ultimately it's what has led to my success. I never viewed myself as less than. I never thought that I wouldn't be able to make it possible. And I just kept moving forward and knowing that I had to show people what I was capable of instead of expecting them to judge the book by its cover.
I love this. All right. For those of you who don't know, let's say this is your first episode. We take notes while these people are talking because they say so much. Like she just dropped a bunch. Okay. All right. Dad, first off, just helped her to learn the value of hard work. What I love that you said you outwork, outsmart, and made sure you always brought more to the table.
Yep.
Another common thing that we're seeing in everybody who has $1 million agencies, some kind of way they dibbled and dabbled in sales, which I think is so crucial because you get used to like, I know it's just like, it's nothing, right? Oh man. Then you talked about immersion, just jump. It's so much. Okay, let's go back. I think you may be the first person we have here that you didn't start the agency yourself. You said you came in as a project manager.
Yep.
And you worked your way up.
Yep.
Now, for those of you who don't know, she runs the whole thing now, by the way. But how, having come from being treated as a lady to now working your way up, like how do you ensure that the people that you bring in don't go through that same thing? Because to your point, it's not like it's overt, you're a lady, I'm not going to talk to you. It's just those microaggressions that us as guys don't even realize we're doing or saying. Or, like, how do you coach your team to work through that and even the clients as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So Honestly, it has a matter of setting the right expectations, right, and then living up to those expectations. It's 2024, so it is very common that women are at the helm of businesses. It's very common that women who are running accounts or being account managers are women. So just like I proved myself to people as I worked my way up, when I'm working with my client success coordinators or they're struggling to help a client understand things, I give them the same types of advice that was given to me throughout my life. There are no limitations. That's their limitation. That's not yours. That's their view of you. That's not yours. So again, when it comes to business, people want to know they're getting a return. They want to understand they're getting things on time. They want to understand what's happening with the dollars that they're giving you. And as long as we're able to do that, it doesn't matter if you're male or you're female. Where the limitation comes in is your mindset. If you're talking to a gentleman and you don't feel that they're taking you seriously, you've got two options. One, wave the white flag and say, hey, I think they need a male project manager to make this work. Or you take it as a challenge. And I think that's where mindset comes in. And Cameron will probably, I'll say the word mindset a million and one times because that's the most critical piece to being successful. And you're right, I didn't start this business. I came in as a project manager. I initially had no intent of running the company. But as I came in at year 2. And there were no processes, there were no procedures. It was a bootstrap organization. So ultimately, I built them for myself to be able to be successful in my role, which led me to then building them for the entire team, which then led me to running the entire project management team, which then led me to becoming VP of operations to put processes and procedures together for the whole company. That led me into being COO and being part of human resources and dealing with the human capital piece and making sure that we had the right bodies in the right seats. So ultimately, it was just this natural progression that allowed me to fit. And I was also what you would call kind of a mediator, right? Our owner is your typical sales guy owner and, very passionate and everything. So he needed someone to help make sense of it. And that became my role for a very long time. This is why we're frustrated. This is why we're upset. This is why he said the things that he said or why he did the things that he did. I made sense of it in a way that brought everybody, both male and female, together. And I think that's a quality that a lot of females don't realize that they have, the ability to be empathetic, the ability to understand what's going on inside of people's heads, and then using that to relate to them in a way that allows you to help them. Women can come and talk to me about feeling like men aren't listening to them because they know I've been through it. Men can come and talk to me about getting over an obstacle dealing with a client because they know that I've been through it. I lead by example, and that's what I expect for everybody that comes in this building.
Yeah. Okay. Woo. I just want to highlight the fact that she worked in multiple facets of the business because I think nowadays we probably social media contributes, but we sell this pipe dream like you got to come in and be the boss automatically, and if not, it's not the right situation. But because of that background from the hard work, she was able to, all right, I'm gonna excel here, then I'm gonna excel here, and she just strategically, and I'm not saying that she planned it, but she worked her way up into where the company had no way to deny her greatness, and I think that's so important to push to our kids, to push the Gen Z that's right behind me, for example. So I just think that's awesome. Okay, one thing you said, you didn't even want to own the company. So all right, you're at COO now. How did we make the move from COO to
CEO?
run it? So how did this happen? Because this is not the norm.
Yeah. So honestly, it was kind of it wasn't necessarily planned until it began to get planned. And what happened was the owner said, "Hey, listen, my bread and butter is starting a business and getting it to about 10 million." He's like, obviously you came in and you build all the processes for the company. You understand what it takes for, scalability and things like that. So we just had this real heart to heart kind of conversation on what was best for me and what was best for him and what was ultimately best for the company. And the decision that we ended up making was that he had desires outside of scaling the company, and he was already working on them. He was already starting it, and he did not want to take away from the growth of the company by his mindset, his focus not being on scaling the company. Whereas on the flip side, I was so invested as COO in the people inside the company, the organization that we had built, the direction that we were headed, that it was very natural for me to say, yes, I'll take the role of CEO because I want to see this company thrive. I want to take us to the next level. And ultimately, all of the people that have helped us get here, I want to continue to grow this for them. So we, were purchased by a private equity company in February of 2023. I've been CEO since September of 2021. I chose to stay on through the acquisition of the company so that I would continue to have the ability to scale us, get us to the next level, and help these employees build a life that they can be happy of. I had mentioned, I grew up knowing that I had to work really, really hard. I had to outwork everybody. And now here in 2024, that's not what I want. I don't want that for myself, and I don't want that for my employees. I don't want it to have to be, you've got to outwork, you've got to outwork. No, we've got to be smart. We have to be smart, and you've got to do it well, and you've got to do it right. And, that's why I wanted to stay on, and I wanted to help this company grow, because I believe that there is the ability to change what a digital agency looks like. There's ability to actually take that breath. Your clients can be happy, your employees can be happy, the business can be profitable. And it doesn't mean that everybody's got to work 80 hours a week to do it. And ultimately, that's my goal, is to, get every employee inside of this company feeling like they've got that balance. I call it work-life integration because I don't believe balance exists. But but the work-life integration is a big piece of me. I actually have a blog, a personal blog, that touches on a lot of the stuff that we talked about. Female obstacles, being a parent. Cameron, we talked about it prior to the show, trying to juggle when, things come your way, when you've got to have your kids with you, but you've still got meetings, you still have things going on. So that's kind of where my headset is, and why I feel I'm the best person to take us to the next level.
Okay, there was a lot you just said right there, and I don't know which one I want to go to first, because CEO since 2021, the private equity decision. I think let's go private equity, and then we'll come back to the work-life integration.
Sure.
So with the private equity, now I know that that's typically huge. Like, it's a huge thing to have an outsider. It's not like, oh, CJ, you buy it and we'll work that out. This is an outsider trying to come in, put their imprint on it. What are some things that you can say? Because, of course, this is, to some people, like their dream to get bought out for millions. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you can say helped you guys to get purchased? Because, of course, if you were not a good company or a profitable company, they would have been like, yeah, no, we're good. Versus clearly, you had a lot of that groundwork done and you were doing great things. So what are some of those things that you think helped you to be able to make it a great deal for them, so that the listeners can be like, oh man, I need to work on that or get that in place?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, your P&L has to look right? You've got to have the right EBITDA, you've got to have the right net operating income, and they've got to be able to see a trend of success and profitability for the company. But that's a given. Outside of that, you've got to find the right private equity firm for what you're trying to do. So let's say that you are a owner operator, and you do not plan to stay on. There are certain firms that will place a new CEO in and be perfectly happy with that. There are also firms that are looking for you to have the leadership team, or at least the CEO, in place, right? They just want to ride the coattails of that success, bring in additional infrastructure to help you scale, and then ultimately make a decision down the line on whether to, acquire other companies, merge with other companies, or ultimately have another flip at the end of the day. So I think when it comes to preparing your business outside of the normal financials, you need to be open and honest with your leadership team about what you're trying to accomplish, why you're looking at private equity. You need to know who on your team wants to be a part of that change and who on that team is going to want to exit during that. Because to make yourself attractive, they want good leadership in place. If not, then there's a lot of heavy lifting for the PE firm in the beginning, right? And it doesn't mean that they can't make changes or make decisions along the way. But if you've got a great leadership team in place that's going to stay along with the sale of the company, that makes the acquisition much smoother and much easier for that PE firm. It's a lot less heavy lifting they have to do in the beginning because they don't have to bring in an operator. They don't have to make those changes. Instead, they can put their time and attention on the infrastructure of the company the data and the insights, and bring value by letting you know where you're lacking, what data you don't have, what insights you don't have. And that was really what happened for us. We don't know what we don't know until someone tells you that you don't know it. So because I stayed on, it made it very simple for the PE firm to come in, take a look at what we have going on, and then provide recommendations on the infrastructure, integrating tech stacks, bringing in new technology, bringing in additional leadership in areas that we hadn't thought about before, right? We're looking for a systems engineer, and that wasn't something that was really ever on our roadmap. And so that's the kind of insight. So I think for anybody listening that's like, how do I prepare? One, your P&L has to be right. You've got to have the right level of sales coming in. It needs to be clean. But the most important things on that is the EBITDA numbers and your net operating income, because that definitely impacts the sale and the parts of the sale thereafter. But then it's also having the right leadership in place that's going to stay. That's going to give you the most opportunity for success. And again, there are two types, right? There are PE firms looking that they just want to buy it up and roll it into something else. That's great. But then there are other PE firms that need that leadership in place so that they can do what they do best, which is helping you to scale.
She cooking, y'all. I hope y'all caught that. Like, she cooking. All right, in case you didn't hear it, she just told you you want the best shot at your business getting the most. The P&L, y'all know we believe in finance here. That goes without saying. So the P&L has to be clean. You have to find the right private equity firm for where you want to go, whether that's all our team is leaving, so they need to bring in their own, or nope, most of our people, with the exception of one, is staying. So that's a completely different plan of approach. Who wants to stay and be a part of that transition? And knowing that they want solid leadership. And mind you, solid leadership would not be, I just hired a COO yesterday, so now come sell. How long have these people been in these positions? What are they contributing? How are they running their departments? What are the systems and processes? All of that matters. So that was an amazing answer. Okay. And by the way, again, just to point out, she's been CEO for 3 years now, so I think she knows what she's talking about. All right. One thing you talked about, work-life integration.
Yes.
Now, I found this question with the different guests we've had. It is two different types of answers from the guys compared to the girls, right? The guys is more like, I have to remind myself to, go spend time with the kid because I'm so locked in and doing that thing. Or maybe the mom's a stay-at-home mom, so got to make sure it's fair and balanced. Versus the ladies' answer is always different. I am so intrigued for somebody who's been performing at a high level for an extended amount. This isn't like we started it 2 years ago. No, this is an extended amount of excellence. What are those challenges like being mom and having to balance all of those different, like, what does that look like?
Well, so first off, I just want to provide a little insight in here. So I met a wonderful woman. Her name is Kristen Donnelly, and she wrote a book, and I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head, but she's part of a company called Abbey Research. And in their research, they were able to identify that women burn out in the workplace because we are programmed to be homemakers, right? Men tend to burn out with their honey-do list at home because they were programmed to be breadwinners. So when we look at the areas of our life in which we get overwhelmed and we get stressed out and we need breaks, it's drastically different. To your point, like, men are so engrossed in what they're doing at work, they forget to go home. Whereas a woman might be sitting there and thinking, oh God, what am I going to make for dinner? Everybody needs to eat at home, or I've got these doctor's appointments. So I think it's important to remember that we were programmed to feel that way. And unless we change our mindsets and we start to have different conversations, that's not going to change for us. The obstacles that I think, and it's not just women, because these days, a lot of men are working from home. A lot of men are sharing the responsibility. So even though it's predominantly women that it faces, I think the further along we get in the years, the more men that are also subject to this. But what happens is we try to do everything in the old school kind of methods. We try to look at our job as that 40-hour kind of 9 to 5 week. And the expectation is at 5 o'clock, we shut it off. And that's when we're supposed to be on parent time. But that doesn't work that way anymore. The world doesn't work that way. And especially in, in our line of business, websites don't shut off at 5 o'clock. So if my client's website goes down, or if something it was done incorrectly, or if they're having an issue, like, we need to be available. We're also dealing in a hybrid world, right? There are a lot of parents that are working from home. There are a lot of different school methods. COVID changed that for a lot of parents, from homeschooling to more parents putting their kids in private school. So there's all these things that are happening that make it absolutely impossible to say that my 9 to 5 is just work and that my 5 and after is just family. So with work-life integration, it's about understanding that you need to show up and as your best in both avenues. And you can't do that if you're failing in either of them. So it's being able to recognize that. I teach a lot about our calendar and how you need to, just as much as your workday is planned out in your calendar, your personal stuff needs to be there too. Why? Because as a woman, I needed to schedule an appointment for me. I had my script. It's sitting in the front of my car because I'm telling my ADD brain is telling me if I put it where I can see it, I'll eventually call, right? Well, it's in my car. I get in my car at 5 o'clock. Every friggin' day, try to make a phone call. Guess what happens? They're not there. And nobody calls you back, right? Instead, what I should have done, schedule time in my calendar, maybe 10 to 11 to schedule those appointments, make the phone calls that I need to follow up. So it's just a matter of planning that day the right way. Also, from a mother standpoint, and men cook too. So again, I hate just, talking about women, but I had mentioned to you that meal prep and, thinking about what am I going to make for dinner? That's something that happens in almost every mother's mind, right? Is, I'm leaving work. What am I going to make for dinner? She stops at the grocery store, gets the groceries she needs. She pulls in, she unloads every grocery bag all at the same time, right? Her arms are completely full. She's opening the door with her foot, sits it all down, then sits to make dinner. By the time she takes off her heels, it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, right? Why? And that's because that's just how we're programmed. Instead, there are so many different things. And it's not just sharing it with our counterpart, right? That's always an option. But for meals, for example, there's technology. There's Instacart. I can have my groceries arrive at the same exact time that I'm pulling in the driveway, right? My meal planning. I can use ChatGPT or any of the generative AI to say, hey, plan me 5 meals for the week. Then when it plans those 5 meals, give me the grocery list for those. Then when it gives you the grocery list, now give me the recipes, right? Super simple. Utilizing that technology. My week is planned, my groceries are ordered, I have got the recipes, it's all done. So there's all these little tips and tricks that can kind of help us smooth out our day and improve that. But we've got to be willing to change with the times. Making doctor's appointments is physically impossible to do after 5 o'clock in most states. We're lucky in the CHOP network that they're open a little bit later, but not every doctor is like that. So being able to schedule time in your workday that says, I'm going to pay my bills. I'm going to make my appointments. That's okay. We frowned upon it for so long. I can't take time out of my workday to do personal stuff. Well, guess what? You're going home at night and you're spending hours on your email answering people. You're having meetings at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night as needed. You're going to after hours networking events to network for your business and bring in leads. So it is not taking time out of your workday. You're just adjusting the times throughout the day that you're doing work and you're doing personal things. So hopefully that answered your question, Cameron. I could go on and on about this particular subject.
I learned something new. So I didn't know that ChatGPT could do this. So I literally typed, what are 3 meals I can make that are healthy with black beans and chicken? I knew tacos because I do that like all the time. It came up with black bean salad and black beans. I'm like, all these times where I'm like, what am I going to eat? I could have just did this.
And just to take that to another point, Cameron, just imagine if you take the opportunity to let your ChatGPT bot know that someone in your family is allergic to shellfish and someone has a peanut allergy and nobody likes tomatoes and, all of that kind of stuff. You can get it to craft it. And then again, it is so helpful. And with the recipes being there too, just imagine I can do it. And then my husband can turn around and make the meal. There's the recipe. Here's all the ingredients. You got it. Right. And I think that's mind blowing, right? And then another aspect of, on the female standpoint, you used to hear all the time, it takes a village, right? They would say it takes a village. Well, as women, we ran our village off. Why? Because I don't want you to fold the towels. You don't fold them the same way I do. I don't want you to load the dishwasher. You don't load the dishes the way that I do. Like, no, I got it. I'm supposed to be Superwoman. I can handle it. No, if your partner wants to load the dishes, let them load the dishes. As long as they get clean, who cares how they are put in the thing? If they fold the towels the wrong way, that's okay. Let them fold the towels. They're still clean and they're still going to get used. So I think it's a matter of, like I said in the beginning, just realizing that we were programmed one way and now we have to reprogram ourselves. Male counterparts most want to help. I talk to a lot of men and they're like, I'll do the dishes. I'll make dinner. But we just run off the village so often by saying, no, we can handle it because we want control, or we feel like it's not going to get done right if we don't do it ourselves. That's the mentality that has to change. And that's what makes work-life integration possible, when everybody is playing at their best, both their work and personal lives.
I didn't even take notes for that because I was busy absorbing. Basically, guys, don't try to do it all yourself. We're in 2024. Times change. Time is just a thing. It's however we want to use it. Yes, you may swap some of the hours to work later or whatever, but utilize that. Okay, let's keep going because this is good. I want to go back to the burnout thing. You said women burn out faster in the workplace and men burn out faster mentally trying to do the things at the house. Not saying that they're bad at either one, but
Yep.
it just happens. Would you be willing to share like sometimes you may have been close to that feeling and how you kind of overcame it, or what were some of the different outside activities? Because some people are like, I got to go on my run. Like, I got to go hit the gym or whatever it is. Can you share with the audience some of those? Because I'm sure some women owners out here that are like, this is so good, but what is she doing to help her to be like this? She's so nice.
Yeah. Well, actually, because I think the audience would appreciate a live example from just today where I could have allowed myself to feel overwhelmed. And it's a great example. So I'm right now in the middle of board prep. So I've got, a bunch of different meetings, reviewing a bunch of data and trying to get our board presentation put together for our board meeting. So I'm sitting here, I'm in that mode. That's where my mindset is. And my phone goes off and I realize it's my son. And my son is texting me because he just started a new job and he needs an account number for his banking account. He can't access it. And he's like going on and on and on and on. And in that moment, I was feeling so flustered because he needed my help, but I was busy. I didn't want to take that time. So having to say the words, I am busy, I am working, I can help you in a little bit, and kind of shutting him off for a few minutes versus allowing that to feed and feed and feed and feed. Ultimately, what I realized was I was just busy. So his tiny ask of me felt like it too much because my plate was full at that moment. But what I was able to do is rationalize it in my head and realize that he had no alternative in that moment. So I just literally took 5 minutes, opened up an account for him, gave him his account and routing number, and was like, I'll talk to you tomorrow, or I'll talk to you tonight. And that was done. But I could have allowed that to make me snap at him. I could have gotten frustrated that he was bothering me during the workday, or I could have completely got myself totally off track. But I literally just took a break, did what I needed, and then got right back to it. So that's a live example of just kind of realizing where I was in my headspace and kind of fixing it. But when it comes to burnout, for me, when I was a project manager, I would feel burnout a lot. And that was because a lot of the work I did, I had to do at home when it came to preparing for my account meetings, my account reviews. We would do literally 2 weeks worth of account prep to get ready for 2 weeks worth of account meetings. And in that moment, I felt like I could only do that and I could only do it at that time. So anybody coming in the door, asking me questions, anybody that needed me to be in mommy mode during that moment, I just would break down into tears because I couldn't be in mommy mode at that moment, right? I just felt so overwhelmed because that was just how my day was set up. And instead, when I started to realize that I needed to figure out a new path for me, when I started on the path of integration, it starts with the morning routine. So hopefully anybody that's listening can kind of jot this down because this has been super helpful for me. So one thing that I do in the morning, I love to do yoga. But I combine yoga with a brief meditation, right? So at the end of my yoga, I sit and do a very brief meditation. And during that meditation, instead of just trying to zone everything out, I try to focus on what I'm grateful for. And you hear this with a lot of people. There's a lot of books that talk about it. But my way of being able to do it is just in that moment after I've done my yoga or whatever workout, I have a brief meditation in which I focus on the things that I'm grateful for. I do not pick up my phone before I leave the house. So I do not check emails. I don't look for missed calls. I wait until I get into my car because as a mother, getting out of the house in the morning can sometimes be difficult. And fathers too, if you're on kid drop off, it's a very stressful time in the morning because you don't want to be late. You're trying to get everybody ready. You pick up your phone and you realize that a client is upset. What do? You're immediately trying to solve that client's problem. So now what you are doing with your kids, they're not getting the best version of you because you're frustrated and you're upset. So by not answering my phone, not looking at it, not checking emails in the morning until I get in my car allows me to get everybody out the door at the right time. When I get in my car, and I don't condone driving and texting or anything like that, I will look over my emails to see if there are any emergencies that may need my attention so that I know what I need to do when I walk in first thing in the morning. But I've got a 40-minute commute. So I use that 40-minute commute to feed my brain. So during that commute, I'm listening to a podcast or an Audible every single day. And they're either something related to work or something related to mindset, health, well-being, whatever it may be, all working on me. That commute is my time to educate myself and work on me. So let's say, for example, I'm in a meeting and someone's talking terminology and I don't know what it is. You can guarantee I'm going to Google a book or a podcast on it, and that's going to be up next when I'm in my vehicle. That's how I gain my education. I'm not taking away from my kids reading a book sitting on the couch at night. I'm not taking away from my significant other laying in bed reading a book. I'm getting that education and I'm feeding my brain in that 40-minute commute on the way to work and on the way home from work. So I save time. I'm creating new time by doing that. When I come into the office, because I know what priorities happened, I'm able to tackle them. And I leave the first hour and a half of every single morning for correspondence and things like that. So there's no appointments, no meetings that are scheduled first thing in the morning because I want to make sure that I'm able to handle any of those priorities that I identified the night before or on my way into work. That's been super helpful. Like I mentioned to you too, Cameron, I do schedule time throughout my day for personal things that need to be done. So if I need to schedule the kids' appointments for their school physical and immunizations and things like that, I will make sure that I mark time on my calendar so that I know I'm going to be making those phone calls and doing those things. Again, integrating both. Before I leave the office at the end of the day, if I don't already have the groceries and things that I need, just like I told you, I've got Instacart loaded. I send it. I know it's going to meet me at my house at the exact same time. I know what I'm going to make. All of that is ready. So it's called, for me, it's about crafting my day so that I can accomplish everything that I need both at home and at work. And it's visible to everybody. My team knows that dinner is important to me. That's a crucial time of the day for me and my family. And I'm not answering my phone and I'm not dealing with emergencies when I'm doing dinner. But that's in my calendar. My team knows that. When I have to pick up my kids or my kids have doctor's appointments, we don't do a good enough job sharing with people around us that we're human and we have a human life. So ultimately, if we make ourselves look as though work is the only thing that's in our lives, then no one is going to assume any different. And that's our fault. So by showing the human side of us, we're able to create that integration and be fluid with the people around us. And it just helps things move so much smoother.
I'm stuck on we don't show people that we're human. And if all we show them is that we're all about work, then that's all they're going to think we are. I think that is so good because I know we have to talk to our clients about that sometimes. Just in the integration of like, there's going to be some times where like work is just crazy. There's sometimes where it lets up a little bit, but we want it to be where the business supports you, not you're just living and breathing on every up and down swing. And that's so hard, especially for marketing agencies, because they're so invested. Like, oh, this is my baby. I've never had us make 30 grand a year before. We're on track to make 60 per month, like all of these different things. So I think what you said was so real in blocking off time or making sure that you communicate the right expectations. I think that's so good. Okay.
The communication is it works both ways too. I just shared this with someone else that I talked to. It's so important that you communicate with your family when you are on and off as far as your professional career goes, right? So my daughter is a competitive swimmer. She's only 8 years old. So she can only wrap her head around so many things. But I will physically sometimes at practice, I will tell her, mommy is going to have her laptop and I'm going to be working during practice. And I'm working while you're at practice so that when we get home tonight, I can make dinner and we can spend time together. So she knows that, as opposed to when it's a swim meet, mommy's not working. Mommy's paying attention and watching her and filming her and cheering her, cheering her on. But when we don't say it, the kids don't understand it. And I think as parents, we make that mistake a lot of times, is like, they look for you. Like when she's in that swim at practice, she's in that pool, she will look up to see if I'm looking and notice if I'm looking and I'm not looking. And if I'm not communicating with her that I have to do work, she's going to just assume that I'm not giving her the attention that she thinks she needs. So communicating that, and sometimes that happens at home too. You've got a late night meeting, or you're, hopping onto a Zoom networking thing, or whatever the case may be. Just being able to say to your significant other or your children, hey, for this from 7 to 8 o'clock tonight, I need to be in the office. I have to work on these things. Communicate. It makes a big difference, as opposed to them just seeing you do it without that knowledge. It's like, dad's always working. All dad ever does is work. So being able to have those open and honest moments, both at work and at home, where you say, hey, right now, this is where my attention needs to be, is far better. And I made that mistake with my son. My son is 21 years old. And, I basically told him, hey, listen, I'm going to make sacrifices because I want to build a life for us. And that was about as much as his 7-year-old brain got, right? No communication. He just knew mom wasn't there. Mom went from being home at 3:30 to every day to mom not being home till sometimes 7 o'clock. Mom went from making dinner 5 nights a week to sometimes mom was just ordering DoorDash. Like, there were so many changes that I didn't communicate with him. And I learned from that, which is why my relationship with my daughter is so drastically different, because I never want her to think that I'm not going to sacrifice my job or my children. They both have to understand that they're both important to me. And that's why I communicate with her so well.
Growth. Growth, growth, growth. Speaking of growth, let's do some scenarios here that I want you to speak into. So I'm a new business owner and I want to do the magic thing. I want to get to a 7-figure agency, but I'm not there. And I've been doing this marketing thing for 3, 4, 5 years. What are the things that I'm not doing that I should be to get me there?
So one, I would say, look at the people around you. As a business owner, how much are you physically doing versus the people around you? Do you have the right people? A lot of times, after 4 or 5 years in business, you have to take a look around and you have to say, are the people that got me here going to be the people to get me there? So most of the time, it's not a marketing issue. It's the people around you, the inability to change. So I would say, first, take a look at the people that you've surrounded yourself with. Do you have the right people to take you to that next level to get to 7 figures? Then from a marketing standpoint, I would say, how often have you looked at your marketing strategy and adjusted it? Are you still using the same funnel that you started with, 3 years ago, or are you adjusting as the time's changing? And I would look at the channels that you're using. And I'm sure, Cameron, many of your guests or many people that you talk to, channels change over time. What you used to rely on 3 or 4 years ago is most certainly not going to still be your top performing channel today. So being able to understand that and make sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. And what I mean by that is, where are your leads coming from? Are you actively working all of those channels? Are you involved in, B2B networking groups? Are you attending conferences and summits like the one you and I just met at, where you're surrounding yourself with people who have already gone through what you're going through and been where you're at to give you insights and valuable information? Are you in networking groups where you can actively receive and send referrals back and forth with other business owners? Do you have the right profiles for your business? If you're a home service business, are you only relying on Google, or are you using Angie? Are you using House? Do you have the right CRM to give you the right data and the right insights? So I think when you're kind of stagnant and you're like, I've been doing this for a long time, two things that you need to look at is, have you updated your strategy, and do you have the right people to take you to the next level?
Yo, I mean, she laying it out for you. I don't know if you can say it any different or more plain. Okay, let me see. Here's a good one that we like to ask people. So you talked about it earlier, connecting with family while trying to still balance work. What are maybe two or three things you guys do as a family that like everybody looks forward to? So like in our house, every Saturday they know it's pancake day and we're gonna watch some type of cartoon I grew up on.
Yep.
Sunday, same thing, and we're gonna go to church together. So what are some of those things that you have?
Yep. So we are an outdoor family. So for us, I have non-negotiable time where we are out on the water. We do a lot of kayaking, and our kids know that when we are out there and we go on the water, that it is just about us and them. There are no, we're not. There's no cell phones as far as checking in on people, checking emails, anything like that. Like that's one of my non-negotiables. I also had mentioned dinner. So right now, I do make dinner almost 5 nights a week, unless I have networking events and things like that. So I've got a calendar. I label. If I'm not going to be there, it says DIY, because they know they got to do dinner themselves. So do it for yourselves. And that doesn't mean that stuff won't be there for them to make it, but so we communicate in that particular way so that we know. And on the nights that I make dinner at home, everybody sits together and we talk about our day. One of the things that we love to do, especially when we're around the table, is give us one highlight from your day. So we go around the table. We start with the youngest, and we have to say one good thing that happened at school or work, and one good thing that happened in our personal life, and we share that around the table. And it's really cute because it ranges from my 8-year-old daughter being the youngest up to us, in our 40s. So hearing the differences, with 4 kids and 2 adults, and what highlights they have is super fun, and it's engaging. And again, it's like one of those non-negotiables. Like if we are on the water, we are just together as a family. If we're around the table, we are just together as a family.
Did you say 4 kids?
Yeah.
Okay, see, this is a whole because a lot of people be like, when I say I got 3, they're like 3. 4 is a different level. Now, how is it like giving each kid their own individual attention? Because you said you got one swimming, one working, and I'm guessing the other 2 in between. Like being a mom, how challenging is that to I gotta give y'all 4 completely different types of attention, plus the team, plus get ready for these meetings, plus still give Bay his time. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so honestly, it's different for every family. For ours, it's not as difficult as it sounds because their ages. So we've got 8 and 12 and 17 and 21. So my 21-year-old, he basically just requires me to, send him money when he needs money and answer the phone when he calls. He calls 5 times a day. Like we have the best relationship when it comes to that, because he just has to call just to say hi. And it's constant, like that kind of conversation, and that's what he needs from me. And my 8-year-old, she needs way more attention, and she gets a lot because of swim. And then the 12-year-old, he's a young boy, and he just mostly wants attention from his dad. So we play and we have a good time together, and he loves when I tease him and kind of joke and things like that. But most of the one-on-one attention that he seeks is from his dad. And the 17-year-old, she's, in that dating world, and she's trying to spread her wings, and she just needs support at the time she needs support. She doesn't need us over her shoulder. She doesn't need us hounding her. As long as she's following the house rules and doing what's expected, for her, the one-on-one attention she wants is to be treated like an adult in conversation and have those conversations. How are things going? How's your boyfriend treating you? What's going on in your friend group? So just being there as a person that can listen to her, it really, really helps. The younger kids, they need more one-on-one attention. As the kids get older, you just have to listen to them and what's important to them. When I don't answer my phone to my son, I can tell it bothers him. I get those kind of passive aggressive little texts back. His feelings are hurt. He needs mommy. And that's important to him. Whereas the 12-year-old, it doesn't need any of that. He just wants to play his video games or play outside. And when he wants his dad's attention, he speaks up. So it's just a matter of actually getting to know the difference in them. And it's the same with your employees, right? Most companies, you get an employee come in, the first thing you're going to do is you run them through some sort of test so that you understand, how does this person learn? How do they need to be taught? What's their disc profile? And trying to learn how to do that. Something else that Kristen Donnelly had said is, we treat our kids as if they're younger versions of us. And they're not. They're not us at all. They're nothing like us. They're completely different human beings. So how do we know how to be one-on-one with them unless we ask, unless we have those conversations, unless we figure out what they need as far as interaction goes? So I think it's there's so much crossover in how you handle employees and how you handle your children, but you got to learn them. You got to learn the kind of needs and wants. You got to learn how to handle them when they misbehave, right? So I grew up, all my dad was, he could say 2 words and I was bawling. I was afraid. I was scared, right? Like, just 2 words. My kids are nothing like that. Nothing like that. Some kids, you got to take away devices. Some kids you can only punish by highlighting the good instead of, punishing for the bad. Like, there's just so much intricacy when it comes to parenting. So getting to know your individual kid and what they need from you is the biggest piece of that puzzle.
Now she a child therapist.
So I was going to say, I feel like I'm giving therapy. And it's actually so funny because we all have, I've had therapists, in the past, just dealing with busy life. And one of the things that you kind of learn from them as a parent is kids don't want to talk to you on your time. Like, I think that's the hardest thing for us to learn as a parent. You come home from work and you get hit with the mom, 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 and you're like, oh my God. But in that moment, that's when they're open. And it's like, so getting past that, being frustrated and say, okay, let me put my stuff down, give me 5 minutes. Or my son, for example, 10 o'clock at night, I'm getting ready to go to bed. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm ready to go to sleep. And that's when that little MFer wants to talk. And it's like, at 10 o'clock at night, like, you want to have a heart to heart. But that was when he was open. So that was one of the things that was very helpful to me, is to realizing, one, they're not a younger version of you. So you've got to learn them. You've got to understand them. You've got to be willing to see the differences. And then 2, you've got to be open when they're ready to be open, even if it's not convenient for you, if you want to build that connection. So, waking up early in the morning, if you've got an early riser, if that's when they're talking, or taking extra road trips sometimes. If I ever want my son to open up about something that's bothering him, he will not do it unless we're on a road trip. Like, hey, let's get in the car and, will you ride with me to such and such? Because at some point in time during that car ride, his body relaxes and then he starts to open up. Whereas I could be asking him for days, yo, dude, what's going on? You're acting like a jerk. What's happening? And he just won't open up. So learning your kids and being willing to meet them when it works for them, I think is a huge piece of bridging that gap.
She's gonna come out with a book on kid therapy, by the way. All right, let's go rapid fire. All right. If you could go back in a time machine, you had 30 seconds and you know every single thing that you know as of right now, but you can go back to your high school or college self, what do you tell them?
Don't let society dictate who you are as a person.
Okay. How has your definition of success changed from when you first started to now?
My definition of success has changed drastically because it's gone from being like money in value, and more about freedoms. So still, success to me means having financial freedom, but it's not just about the money. It's being able to have the money to provide financial freedom, time freedom, and all of those aspects. So I think it's just changed where I don't look at success just as wealth.
Okay. What are 2 or 3 things you would contribute to you being successful? You talked about your dad. I think you said you meditate every day. What are like 2 other things?
So part of it goes back to my mindset. So not putting limitations on myself. So not letting someone else's thoughts of limitations for me be put on myself. I think that that's helped a lot. And then just speaking up, even when no one wanted me to speak up, like speaking up and advocating for myself at every turn.
What has being the owner, the head honcho, the boss taught you about yourself that you didn't know maybe earlier at your journey?
That I was capable of being the CEO of a company. It's the simplest way that I can understand that. He saw something in me that I did not see for myself.
Okay. Y'all, it was so much here. Before we even do that, tell the people again, this is your time. People are probably like, ooh, girl, I need to connect with you because you got some good ideas. Or maybe they're a female listener and they're like, ooh, we want you to help our company. Again, tell them the name of the company, who you're targeting, how you help them, etc. This
Yeah.
is your time.
Absolutely. So the name of the company is One SEO Digital Agency. As I mentioned before, we are full service digital marketing. So we offer all of your traditional marketing services like SEO, PPC, website design, content marketing, reputation management, but we also do videography, photography. We also have partnerships for OTT, traditional advertising, direct mail. So we are here for you. We serve three segments: home services, health and wellness, and professional services. I also have a blog called shehandlesit.com. On She Handles It, I talk about a lot of the stuff we did later in the interview when it comes to obstacles that women face and just mindset and getting yourself into that work-life integration. So you can find all the information you need to know about me and the company at oneseo.com. Or if you want to learn more about the blog, you can go to shehandlesit.com.
I mean, just a super quick review. Okay, here we go. Outwork, outsmart, bring more to the table. She knows what it's like to be a woman in a male dominated industry, but if you can continue to bring that value and you immerse yourself in that niche, that you can still overachieve and give immense value and blow them out the water. Um, she realized that it was time for a change, just like the old CEO realized, hey, it's time to switch seasons. She gave us tips on if you want to make your company look the best it can, you need to make sure your P&L is right, that you have the right firm, that you know what your transition plan is going to be, and having good leadership. We talked about burnout depending on who you are and what you're doing. She talked about work-life integration, not balance, because I agree, I don't believe there is a such thing. Some seasons require different things, but how can we do that? How can we use all these new technologies and new things to help us to still get the same things done? She talked about just even in knowing your children and how that's so similar to knowing your team and how to manage, motivate, and get them to speak. So I hope you guys got as much from this episode as I did. CJ, thank you so much for coming on here. We want to let you go because we know you got to save the world. But guys, reach out to her. Find her on Facebook if you can. She told you the name of the website. Tell them the website again.
oneseo.com.
Tell them the blog again.
Shehandlesit.com.
Because she's going to handle it. So, guys, make sure you tag whoever, share this with whoever needs it. And let's try to make this the biggest episode we have. So, with all that being said, guys, until the next episode, we're determined to find you the best people we can. Until then, take care of yourselves. See ya.
Bye, guys.